Sammy
and Brooke. Welcome to the Sammy and Brooke show. Today we're going to be discussing why all of these colonists are revolting against our mother country, England. So put down your tea and listen up.
The conclusion of the French and Indian War in 1763 between France and Britain brought the end of salutary neglect, a policy that the Parliament had used in the colonies and in trade regulations, which gave more freedom to colonists in hopes of increasing commerce. However, Britain faced a huge amount of war debt, and the Parliament began passing taxes in the colonies in order to pay for the debt and to support the Britain in the colonies.
British power became evident in the colonies with the Sugar Act of 1764, which marked the beginning of taxes in the colonies. The Sugar Act was an effort for Britain to reduce its war debts by placing a tax on refined sugar and molasses in the colonies. However, us colonists were dismayed by the tax and boycotted British import.
It only got worse from there. Taxes continued being placed on the colonists. Next came the Stamp Act of 1765, the first internal tax which required legal documents, newspapers, pamphlets, and even birth certificates. Now that is just absurd. Don't fret, though. Our fellow colonist Samuel Adams founded an organization called Sons of Liberty, which prevented the use of stamps by having street riots, forcing loyalist merchants out of business, attacking stamp distributors and royal officers, along with tarring and feathering. Their opponents called them Sons of Violence. In August, the members destroyed Andrew Oliver's house, who was the Boston stamp distributor. Definitely left a clear message to stamp distributors. How have you been lately, Brooke?
I've been so stressed. The soldier in my house has been eating all of the food I bought for my family. The Quartering Act of 1765 has made our lives as colonists even more difficult. The Parliament requires colonists to house British soldiers whenever requested. It is just ridiculous.
I read on the Boston Post Boy that if soldiers are unable to find a quarter, that they can live in houses, outhouses, and barns. Some of American grievances that were on the Boston Evening Post were quartering of soldiers and allowing the Crown to control America without any legal charge.
Finally, the Stamp Act was repealed by Parliament in 1766. Our excitement was short-lived because then came the Declaratory Act, which showed who's boss. The act stated that all resolutions, votes, orders, and proceedings in any of the said colonies or plantations whereby the power and authority of the Parliament of Great Britain to make laws and statuses.
Then came the Townshend Act in 1767 that taxed imported lead, glass, paint, paper, and tea. The duties were on every piece of paper you could think of that was imported to the colonies. For every rim of paper called Atlas Ordinary, 6 shillings.
Oh yes, I read the Samuel Adams circular letter that my fellow friend George Washington, a member of the Virginia House of Burgesses, showed me while I visited him. The letter was in response to the Townshend Acts and was encouraging colonies to unite for national and constitutional rights that the Parliament was stripping away.
Tensions began to rise and climaxed on a snowy evening on Monday, March 5th, 1770. Basically, what went down is over 100 Bostonians challenged a group of 9 British soldiers near the Boston Custom House. Captain Thomas Preston, who was the commander of the troop, tried to suppress the soldiers. However, the soldiers panicked and began firing into the crowd because Bostonians were throwing mud, ice, and snow at them. This was known as the Boston Massacre.
Oh yeah, I read the New York Journal. It said that the murder of the townsmen was preconcerted by the soldiers, that the soldiers fired upon the people without any adequate provocation, and that Captain Preston expressly had orders to fire, and that there were guns fired among the people from the custom house window. All right, Sammy, all this talking has made me quite thirsty. I am parched.
Something about this smuggled tea just tastes better. Must be the price.
The Tea Act of 1773's purpose was to make the East India Tea Company a monopoly on the importation of tea in the colonies. However, Britain's efforts failed because the East India Tea Company sales continued to fall due to the boycotts and smuggling. The Parliament refused to repeal the tax on tea, which led to a huge protest in the Boston Harbor.
The Sons of Liberty organized a protest because of the high taxes, no taxation without representation, and the Parliament's control over the colonies. On December 17, 1773, an event known as the Destruction of Tea, where colonists dressed up as Indians and boarded the ships in the Boston Harbor carrying the tea from the East India Tea Company. The Sons of Liberty dumped 342 chests of tea overboard. This event should be dubbed the Boston Tea Party.
I agree. It was quite the celebration for colonists that night in Boston.
Many were fans of this, except for loyalists, and Britain. Anne Holton, a loyalist and commissioner of customs at Boston, viewed this event as disgusting and cruel. She even was more enraged about the tarring and feathering of a tidesman a few nights before.
Well, because we messed with Britain, they of course came back to haunt us with the intolerable acts of 17. The Parliament closed the Boston port from trading until the Bostonians had repaid the East Indian Tea Company for the tea that was destroyed, suspended self-government in Massachusetts, allowed trial for colonies to take place in other colonies or Britain, and the Quartering Act. Wait, Sammy, why did the colonists revolt against Britain?
Colonists were fighting for natural law and were focused on gaining independence from Britain and to no longer be controlled by a monarchy. Brooke, what are the outcomes of the revolution?
Colonist resistance and rebellion against their mother country led to the Revolutionary War from 1775 to 1783. It was between the American patriots, which were mostly made up of the New England states and Virginia, against the Loyalists, whom were loyal to the British crown. Americans fought for political independence for Britain, and was a phase in the larger movement called the American Revolution.